further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? All right, motion carries. Only agenda item is Ms. Calabro, language for police and fire administration regarding the salary ordinance. And you're by yourself. The police, they were all here last. I think I've got everybody confused, so.
They said it was no-show Calabro.
It was a rough night.
That was a rough
That
night.
was. So.
Any report on that, or?
I was there Saturday night for about an hour and a half. Lynn and I went. It's not good. He's had a setback and is back at Jewish and ICU. Still there today.
Well, we'll keep him in our prayers.
Exactly right.
It's gonna be a long road. So. Okay, I guess I really don't have anything. I know I was telling Vicki that I don't have anything to give to you all. I brought a couple pieces of document just for talking points, but I didn't pass them out because there are already things that kind of exist. And Amy and I, after one of the last council meetings, and then I think after Darlene, the auditor, after she was here the last time, and then particularly it was the night after we decided to put police and fire into a pay grade. Our concern, because we're always thinking in terms of what is State Board of Accounts going to look at? What are they going to consider? What's going to be their concern next time they're here? Amy and I are concerned that if they come back in next time, they're going to be looking at the ordinance and they're going to see police and fire administrative staff as a pay grade. Well, if you look at pay grades, everybody else has longevity at a certain level. You have PTO and vacation, that stuff at a certain level. You've got fire and police under collective bargaining that have their stuff under their CBA. However, the police and fire administrative staff are a little bit different. And from what I've heard everybody say is we're not trying to take anything away from fire and police in terms of their longevity, because they have different longevity than we do. So I got together with police and fire administrative staff and with Les, and we came up with some acronyms. And what I want to try to do is just somehow kind of clean up the ordinance so that if and when none of us are here next time Darlene comes around, that she kind of knows that we have collective bargaining folks, we have civilian, and then we have the police administrative. So we almost have 3 groups of people. And somewhere in the ordinance, I think we need to kind of change that language to reflect that.
Now, are you referring to salary ordinance? Is that the ordinance?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, because police, like, so you've got like Kenny and McBoy and Scott Oliver, Kenny Kavanaugh, Chief Hedrick, Bruce DeArc, who's the third one?
Sean Grant.
Sean, that are,
The salary ordinance is in your...
yes, it's in your packet. I'm
your
sorry.
council.
Thank you, Vicki.
Yeah, it's in your council packet. I didn't make 2 copies because we all got that coming up tonight.
Last time I had a separate copy.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. I'm glad you did. I thought maybe that's what they were looking at. So that's the current ordinance. And I've got a couple sections in there that I've referenced for some language that might be a good idea, but I didn't want to go in and start changing verbiage or changing the wording without coming to something like this and just having the discussion to make sure that everybody kind of understood a little bit where I was coming from. And then the only 2 pieces, when I start talking in a minute, I'm going to refer to, because I try to come up with an acronym that would kind of make sense. So we came up with PFAS, Police, Fire, Administrative, Appointed Staff. So I've got that for you, which is a little silly, but
Makes
it's not
sense.
set in stone. It's just, again, for talking points. And then here's an executive order that was done like a year ago.
Yeah, I know what you're
I
talking about.
referenced that in there too because that gets kind of confusing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is there a reason why we wouldn't keep the police and fire administration part of the existing structure? Is it just because they're not negotiated with the,
I'm sorry.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Mike, I had a meeting with Chief Kavanaugh and about a week ago, and we discussed a lot of this. You know, my only thing was, you know, it's worked for all these years. I don't know. My question was, and I'm not for it or against it, I was just asking the question, you know, why we were changing it now.
Well, I guess,
Because my job is to authorize things and anticipate and to be proactive, and I'm trying to preempt it before Darlene comes back next year and then says, oh, wait, you have these people in a pay grade 6 and a 7, why do they get the longevity that so-and-so gets? And the reason I brought it up is because the night we talked about longevity, I was understanding that everybody on the council was pretty much agreeing that a police officer is a police officer is a police officer, whether you're in the police department or you're in administration. So we're not taking longevity away. One could argue that if you look at the ordinance, the only other people that have longevity are the civilian people, which is a whole different level of longevity than fire and police have. So I think one could argue, to your point, coming in and saying, okay, you're paying them $10,000 longevity, they should be getting $2,000.
I don't understand, how can they can argue that because of what?
Because we now have our police and fire administrative staff in a pay grade. We've assigned them a pay grade, and they've never been assigned a pay grade. The pay grade goes along with the ordinance with the pay grade sheet that talks about the titles and a pay grade.
What's your thoughts, Scott?
And maybe I may be overthinking it. No, that's what I said earlier. Amy and I are just trying to anticipate if they do.
Well, I mean-
They're probably trying to anticipate it because like when we gave the employees that.
We're trying to be
time,
proactive.
and then they went back and then we couldn't, even though we,
I guess.
There's no sinister hidden agenda. Nobody has told me to do it. Nobody has.
What do other municipalities do with the police and fire administrative staff versus the union?
I really don't know. I think they're all over the place. But I think that the intent of the council is to not take away the longevity that they currently have. And I think to try to reinforce that and to make sure,
But longevity.
that's
really,
captured in here.
Longevity is a different aspect in this anyway.
well, that's,
Longevity's been in effect since probably the 50s or 60s, so.
well, I understand what she's saying.
right, and I agree.
She's trying to say because there's a difference between the city employees and the police and fire. How are we going to explain that to the State Board of Accounts? Basically.
Because
yes.
now they're listed in the salary ordinance like a civilian employee.
Exactly, as a pay grade. And they've never been assigned a pay grade. They were in there with nothing next to, they didn't have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 in their pay grade. It was just,
So because
Police
they're
chief.
listed like a civilian employee, we need to lay out the fact that, no, they're not going to get their benefits of a civilian employee. They're still going to be covered by the same benefits they've had through their career.
Can we just put
Yes.
that in there?
well, that's what I want to talk about. So I've got a couple, I mean, I think it's pretty simple, but again, because this ordinance has changed how many times this year, I didn't want to go in and start making those changes for a draft and then have to go back and try to, so I do have a couple pieces of language that I think would hopefully clean it up, and any input that you have, just, oh, yes, I'm sorry, I forgot you too.
I mean, historically, I mean, public safety has always been treated differently as
Right.
salary benefits for the police anyway. It's kind of inherent.
For those of you who've been around though, and the State Board of Accounts are here, if it's not completely spelled out and very clean,
Can I ask one other question before we go? And Scott, I guess this goes to you. I guess we have to look at our contract and how our contract reads too. The police.
but if you read the contract, it doesn't really talk about those appointed people. We've always
Yeah, these
let
are
them
appointed.
follow the
I understand,
contract.
But my
Yeah.
point is, what you said earlier, they're always firemen or they're always policemen.
That's how I
They
feel.
always get that longevity and they always get, because
Mhm.
they're paying into their retirement, they're paying into, I mean, I don't know how fine how you define all that.
I just don't know why, I mean, at some point in time, could the State Board of Accounts come in and question something? Absolutely. In all the years ever since, the State Board of Accounts have never questioned this, not to say they never would. The fire union or the police union, they negotiate salaries or whatever, and then at the end of the day, it completes the rank structure, whether you're the chief or the youngest guy on the bottom of the pole. I don't know, I don't really know.
It's because they've never been in our salary ordinance before like this.
Mhm.
They've always,
So now that they will look at it, they'll say, oh, I can see them doing that because
And
they've
if-
done it with everything
Well,
else.
And if for the record, you wanted to make a statement, and it's in a meeting, and it's in a form that everybody votes on, and we had that somewhere for
Even if we
State
just,
Board of Accounts to look at and say, oh, okay, yeah, that's their intent. When they
Right.
look at this, we may all know what the intent was, just like what went through this
Right.
year with all the raises. Darlene's like, I really don't care about the intent. You've
She
got to
said it-
prove to me that it happened.
and she told me, even if it was in the minutes, it would have been okay. But
Right.
for some reason, it wasn't in the
But
minutes.
we don't know other municipalities, cities that have had
Not discussed in
police and
council.
fire for years, 100 years or
Mhm.
whatever. We really don't know how they handle.
No, but I think we're kind of a little more on the cutting edge of our salary ordinance than a lot of people. I think most municipalities still have the format where they have a dollar amount, and, Lisa's been here as the city engineer for 20 years, and she's leaving at $65,000 a year, and all of a sudden they bring Mike in with no experience, and, oh, well, it says right here we can pay him $65,000 a year, and they pay him $65,000 a year.
And I also see what Kim's saying, that our council significantly changing next year,
Mhm.
to the good, the better, we hope.
Mhm.
But Kim's not, you're how many years from retirement? I think one of her concerns
Not
is,
close enough.
let's
I
make
can tell you
sure
that.
something has got, and plus, with the appointed, they don't want to, something that protects their longevity. I think that might be a safe thing of saying, make sure that somebody else can't come in and interpret something that's
Yeah.
really not in there and say, you got, I think that
And my
we just want
role,
to protect their
yeah,
longevity.
and my role is kind of like what Lisa's trying to say too, is, protect the employees and protect the administration and protect the council. And I'm the one that they come to, that when she comes with her 3 pages of prove this, show me that, I need these 15 files of police, I need these 20 files of fire, prove to me how this person went from this job to this job. I'm the one having to document and show and prove and go through and collect meeting minutes and prove that what was done when. So, again, just trying to think it through a year ahead. Wouldn't have given it any thought until we decided to make them into a pay grade. And I was kind of thinking it, and then Amy kind of brought it up, and I'm like, oh, Lord, that's exactly what I was thinking. So, I can tell you what some of the language is that I wrote in here. It's real simple. It's nothing significant, nothing. But again, I just wanted this to be a forum in which to kind of talk about it. If you want to leave it the way it is and not worry about it, I understand. If we want to kind of move forward to make it a little bit cleaner, so to speak. Do we just kind of tell you what I was looking at?
Please.
If you look at page 7 of the ordinance, section 2B, under clothing allowance, instead of saying the non-union administrative employees, it's going to say the PFAS. And if anybody has a better name for a better acronym, I'm all for that. That would be a place that we might say PFAS employee. And then the last sentence of that paragraph where it says this benefit is also paid to the non-union rank, it would say, no, that would actually stay non-union rank.
Can you, I'm trying to type this.
I'm
as we
sorry.
go. So what you said is the non-union, you remove that, strike
It
that?
would just say the PFAS employee.
So strike non-union, correct?
Yes.
administrative.
Yeah, and insert the P staff.
Yeah, PFAAS.
Okay, all right, got that.
And then somewhere in here, I don't know if we need to add a paragraph or reference this executive order, because this isn't recorded anywhere.
Scott, does the executive order come part, is that, that can change with each mayor, does that come part of the salary ordinance? That's set forth by,
I don't know. Really, executive order really sets, like benefits, that's usually applied.
Okay.
Anyway, that'd be like executive order trying to set salary ordinance.
yeah.
If I understand it's vacation time,
Right.
all that.
But how would one know that this exists, I guess is my point. When you start going through this, and I know because I'm here and I've been through it, but if I'm not here, somebody comes in, they start asking the State Board of Accounts starts asking questions. If you weren't part of the process when this executive order that defines police and fire administrative staff's personal days and vacation days, who's going to know the answer? So I was just suggesting that it's referenced, not that it's set in stone, and if it's part of the ordinance that makes it set in stone, then I understand that. Again, this is just kind of for me as well, too, to try to figure out what's the best way to get our arms around having this make sense. So you can think about that for a minute, Scott. If you go to page 8, section 2, longevity pay, I'm just suggesting that we add one sentence that reads like this. PFAS will continue to be eligible for longevity at the same rate/schedule as outlined in the union contract.
We'll continue to be able,
PFAS will continue to be eligible for longevity at the same rate schedule as outlined in the union contract.
I'm trying to remember all this.
Where are you adding that at specifically?
We got section 2C under longevity pay. I would just add at the very end, just add in a sentence.
All the other language in there?
Yes. Because that has to do with civilian, even though it says all non-union. See where it gets confusing? If you really sit and read it, you really start thinking, okay, who's who? Do you want me to repeat that one more time?
Yep,
Yeah.
Okay.
slowly.
PFAS will continue to be eligible for longevity at the same rate schedule as outlined in union contract. And I think, my line of thinking there, and I think everybody confirmed it that night, especially Nathan, who had a lot of questions when we put them into the pay grade, was that you're not trying to take away somebody who's been a police or firefighter for 20 years and at the top of the pay scale of longevity, just because they decide to come out into an administrative position, take that away from them. And then the only other sentence that I was going to add was under section 2D, under holiday pay. At the very end of that paragraph, and it's only 2 sentences as it stands, we would add all PFAS shall be entitled to receive same benefits as stated in union contracts. All PFAS shall be entitled to receive same benefits as stated in union contract. I think that was pretty much it. The other thing that we talked about is the consideration of payout of the time on the shelf when someone comes, there's never really been a distinction of people coming from police and fire to admin and then back in terms of pay. I don't know if you'd ever want to consider when they go back in, paying that out so they don't go back to the department with a lot of that pay. I don't know if that's something you want to think about or if that's something that's kind of too far down the road, but
Do what?
like when somebody leaves and goes back, so that they're not going back into the fire police with a whole bunch of bank days. Because right now, historically, that's not always, I think, been real
How does the
clearly
administration
defined.
get bank days?
Pardon me?
How do they get bank days?
Like myself, I have the same,
You're talking about police and fire
Yeah.
administration. How do they get banked days?
well, that's part of this executive order that I was talking about wanting to reference. If they're tracking it through Telestaff, which they should be tracking it, so if they take time off and they have a week off, that's coming out of their bank day.
To me, it's like a vacation.
Right.
And that they can't accumulate them over, I mean, maybe they can't bank more than 10 annually, right?
Yeah, I would, they go back, they would have to abide by the contract.
Yeah, I mean,
We
The con-
had spent a lot of language
the
on that,
contract
Scott.
states how many days they can have.
So when they
So
go
they can't
back,
go back in with more than the contract says they have.
So they would just take those days with them? That's what I just want to make sure.
Up to their limit.
Okay, yeah, right, okay. Well, again, I don't know if we need to clarify that somewhere.
We
I
spent a
don't know
lot of time on
how,
that.
I don't know how many, and I understand what
Mhm.
you're trying to do, and I completely sympathize. But daggone, I mean, I don't know how many times we can jump back and forth this road, because, you know, we spell it out in the contract, and we treat all the fire and police the same, and we don't want to take anything away from them.
Mhm.
But we specifically spelled out how many days they could bank in the contract.
Okay,
So if a civil city employee is able to bank 5 more days than they are, when they go back, they'd have to buy them or sell them.
okay.
I mean, isn't that,
So the city would have to buy them back?
well, we had to buy back to
That's
get,
my question,
we
yeah.
had to buy back to get them down to the threshold
Yeah, we
under the
did,
contract.
we did.
So it would be no difference. And you know, if they had them banked and they were planning on using them and they got replaced before the administration
Mhm.
changed, somebody got let go or replaced, nobody knows when that's gonna happen, so,
And I don't want to contradict the contract.
no. And we don't wanna open that
I
up.
thi- And I think we're saying the same thing.
We are.
Yeah, so, and before though, nothing's ever been tracked. Now we have a tracking system and we have telestaff
Yep.
and it tracks all of that, so, okay.
I mean, and the thing, and Kenny, correct me if I'm wrong, but what's that?
Yeah, you're correct.
No, and I told you, I said, there is nobody on here trying to take anything away from anybody. We are not. And I understand Kim wants some clarity, but on the other hand, we know that contract is still there, and we gotta abide by that contract first and foremost, I would think, wouldn't we, Scott?
Yeah, I guess they're saying these are for the people that technically are not part of the contract.
Right.
Administrative one. But if you're saying in all these other places that the PFAS or whatever you call it, these appointed administrative staff, you're saying that they're still subject to the same longevity as the contract, same police contract, but then you're gonna say, well, we're gonna do the time off accrual differently.
No, I'm not saying that.
All the other stuff applies to me.
No.
When it's consistent.
No, I want it all to be consistent. No, I want it all to be consistent.
See, but you said.
I think you're gonna really make it too convoluted.
In the contract, see, it's doing it different.
But this is the way they've always done it.
Oh, boy, we're gonna get,
Sean,
Welcome to
come on
Malton.
up, so
I mean,
because she's typing this.
Technically, when I was online, I got, if you equated my days to what I got now, to being online, I'd have 60 days vacation. Okay, now I've got 20. So, I mean, there's a little difference, so I think to clean the language up, and I think that's what we're trying to do there.
So you talk
Be a little
about an
bit-
8-hour versus a 24-hour?
Yes,
Okay.
so, I mean, that's
I
trying
guess I'm
to,
at a loss. I wasn't in these meetings, so I can't give you an answer right now.
No, I'm-
Legal recommendation. I didn't sit in these meetings to go over all the language and why this is going to be a problem. I would need time to digest it if you're going to look for a recommendation.
well, I don't think any of us,
Oh, and that's
None of
all
us
I'm here
have said
for, is to
that.
talk about that, yeah.
I would have liked to have been at those meetings, we're talking about changing the city council ordinance, so I could be more prepared to understand what the issues are.
and I think that's what we were trying to do, is clean up some of the language, like, 60 days, for me to have 60 days vacation is crazy, okay? So I think that's one of the things we're trying to clean up here with this ordinance here, so.
I just need to sit down and digest it, and whatever you all talk about, I can.
So you
So I
haven't
guess once,
been exposed to any of it.
Or
so
next
Scott,
week.
I'm thinking, with
Yeah.
the executive order, I think this is what kind of,
And that may be insignificant. In my head, it's significant, so maybe I'm
well, but
wrong.
he's right, though, because they now go with an 8-hour day, they're not on that 24-hour shift, so it
Right.
does change their
And in
vacation.
my mind, I'm thinking this goes along with everything we talk about parity, so why, but if you look at the ordinance, you would never know this existed. You see what I'm saying? But if it's significant, should it not be referenced?
That's a
I mean,
Scott.
think about trying to manage this document from my office.
The stamp, I mean.
See what I'm saying?
executive Can
Is
change
this still, did you say now that if something's changed? this
with
is
each
not followed
executive.
anymore,
I
or
mean,
it is?
No, this is followed from what I understand, correct? Yes. So, and I'm not here to say, okay, let's make a decision like right now. I mean, that's,
reference to say see executive.
I'm just, again, trying to think it through, 6 months, 9 months.
But isn't that what the executive order did?
Yeah.
Isn't that what the executive order did, was clarified what you're talking about?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. To put police or put fire on the same level of police. Yes.
Well, yeah, Scott will look that over. 'cause-
And really, that should, to me, that should be part of like the personal policy handbook, with all the other benefits.
Okay.
Kind of an executive order, I think that's the problem.
And that's where I start getting,
Should be, in my opinion, is that something that's council, or this is, I mean, I know this type of thing is a fiscal decision, I don't think alone, you take order by itself, has any really pure legal bearing. I mean, I think, in my legal opinion, I think it must be part of the personal policy handbook, procedures, and just for a lot of, this is your.
okay.
As long as it's referenced somewhere, then we're all right.
Thank you.
Well, I think what
But I
Scott's
see what you're
saying
saying.
is that the mayor overstepped his executive duty in doing that, because that is a council by state.
If it needs to be clarified,
Yeah.
at least the minute is that we need, this needs to be
Is-
done in the proper way, in the personal policy.
Is there any way we could take that and just put that in the handbook or add it to it?
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to do that.
And then that would have to be done by city ordinance, and then that would,
Because I think if state or council is not done, they would say that this was not done right by the fiscal body, this is not really applicable. I think the state or council raised that issue.
Okay.
So if you're concerned about that, I think it needs to be personal policy handbook, or whatever we call it. and they-
I like for things to make sense, and sometimes it just seems like all of this is so, there's bits and
Well, you get
pieces
too many
everywhere.
layers on it.
Yes.
Pile them
Yes.
on, get-
Well, and I do have, I'm pretty much ready to go with the handbook too, so whenever y'all want to tackle that.
Close to budget time.
Huh?
So we're getting close to budget time.
Didn't-
Talking about a handbook.
I just, well, I want to get it done, so. And that's all I had for recommendations. I don't know if you all want to, like, take it further to another meeting and talk about it, or to get with Scott and discuss it further. I just
You brought up valid points.
want to kind of have it make a little more sense and be a little more clear.
I think we should look to Scott to make a
yeah,
recommendation
I
on
think
how
so
to.
too.
move
And that way
forward.
you're also not going to be left hanging, wondering when it's going to come back up. So.
Yeah. Because, you know, the thing is, I mean, Darlene, I bet said 10 times, you know, intent, I can't help you what your all's intent was. If it's not here and you can't prove it,
It's got to be in black and white.
yeah.
So Scott, could you get with Kim and find, and work something out and bring it back before the council?
Yeah, yeah, like I said.
And if we need to do an ordinance or whatever, then we'll have that ready to go whenever we,
Yeah, and you
You're
can
in
have like
agreement.
personal policy handbooks, like, someone had that in computer format.
Yes, I do. Well, it's still waiting for Les's final
Okay.
blessing.
I can already say that, I know this
Let's
is
go.
order, if we agree that this.
yes, he's off this
This
week.
policy is valid.
To get ready for the wedding and then next year. He sent me a.
Yeah, I mean, I
They're not gonna make it-
don't care where it goes.
Change, I just want to digest.
I mean, I just want it referenced somewhere, because y'all start talking about something like, that doesn't exist. Yeah, it does. My memory's not getting any better, so if I don't get it down, then.
I think they're overthinking something.
Okay, do you want a copy of the whole handbook, or do you just want like the ordinance
No, I mean,
section?
like the part, I don't, I mean, just what I'm saying, I think that.
I'll have to go back and find the spot to put, okay, got it.
And then I'll just look, I just need to digest this recommended places for this language. Keep it digested, so it's not-
Now, Kim, are you gonna?
It wasn't a
give him-
big overwhelming meeting, it was,
You gonna give him the new handbook or the old handbook? Because I think we ought to work off the new one, try and get
the
that.
proposed new one, but I don't have either section approved yet,
I know
so,
that.
yeah.
But what I'm saying is.
Yeah, I can get it,
don't
Jim.
wanna Put it in the old one, then have to come back.
Exactly, yeah. No,
reinvent the wheel.
I agree
Put it in the
completely.
new one.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to him. And a copy of proposed ordinance to Scott. Got it.
So basically Scott's going to review these different pieces of the puzzle and
And then you all
Fit it
tell
for
me
us.
what you want in it, and then I'll change the ordinance and get it to Vicky, and then Vicky will get it to you guys, and
get it cleaned up.
maybe by 2017, we'll have it all figured out.
It'd be time to change it. You good with that, Scott?
Yeah, fine.
I mean, is this something that has to be done like today, or is it something that we can, okay,
And again, Mike, it may be, he may decide, it's really not necessary.
okay.
I just didn't want to be the one to not bring it to everybody's attention, and then 6 months from now, or 8 months from now, everybody like, why do you think about that?
Going through it and then they.
Yeah,
Well, we're subject to them
So-
going through it anytime.
just,
You never
again,
know.
trying to be ahead of the game so that the more
Correct.
efficient we can be with the questions that state auditors ask, one, the more organized we look, the more
Right.
professional we appear, the more we appear that we actually know what we're doing
It
versus,
would be
that-
interesting to see how even Clarksville, New Albany, or just our local municipalities, whether you go to Columbus, how they manage this. It seems to me that,
On their contracts.
I'll call some people and find out. I got
Yeah.
HR friends all over the state, so,
well, I
believe
mean,
it or
I don't
not.
know if it's, they may have something that's clean that we can just adopt.
mhm.
I'm gonna say don't look at New Albany. So,
We don't want to be like New Albany anyway.
But it looks like we've already got it done, so it's.
Carmel?
That's okay. We
So
just
they
have
wanted
to
the
handle
same
it.
pay?
I know.
Everything was
Maybe you and I can get
revolving
yeah,
together.
what happened with that?
Yeah.
Y'all
Well,
wanted
that, he's not union.
us, he was.
We're gonna
Union was
get
all
this.
about New Albany. We need to have it the same.
We're building a
thing.
model,
They
aren't
wanted
we?
the same pay, they wanted the
The
same.
same fire trucks, same color helmets, what's the matter with it? I never seen nothing like it.
Hey, Sean, what were you guys doing up on Buttocks?
We've got permission to train in those houses. We've been doing some, having some of our newer guys doing some ventilation training up there, so they're
I want to
gonna
sit
tear those down
Can I
in
sit
2
down?
weeks.
Yeah, you're done.
Yeah.
So we've been training.
Yeah,
Motion to adjourn.
second.
Meeting adjourned.